Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto destroys everyone in Chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Finraldstromblade and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Birth of Naruto, the Scorching Maelstrom. It was the day of the finals for the Chunin exams. Visitors from far and wide were in attendance. One such visitor had her feature hidden behind a heavy cloak and she was there to confirm if her source was correct, and if they were, then she would be very unhappy with the village. As she looked down at the field at the blonde boy with blue eyes, she knew she was going to be confronting the Hokage after the exams. Stadium Arena. Naruto stood with his fellow Chunin hopefuls, Neji, Shikamaru, Temari, Gaara, Kankuro, and Shino. Sasuke was missing in action, but given that he was training with Kakashi, it was no surprise that they were late, which was too bad because Naruto had a surprise for the entire village and it seemed his teammate and rival were going to miss it. He looked over at Neji and almost felt bad for him. This last month he discovered he had a gift as well as stumbling upon what he wanted to know for all of his life. He found his parents' house and was able to gain access to it. There he found their letters, jutsu scrolls and fuinjutsu notes, and despite what people thought, he was actually very smart and knew the secret of the shadow clone jutsu and abused the living hell out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third stage of Chunin exams. Before you stand the young ninja that overcame the first two stages in hopes of becoming Chunin after this tournament is decided. May they show us what they feel a Chunin should be and good luck to you all. However, I will say now that if your name is called and you do not respond immediately, you will forfeit your fight. All shinobi are expected to be punctual, therefore being late to an important event such as this is unacceptable. Proctor if you will. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage announced, earning shouts of disapproval from the crowd, noticing that their precious Uchiha wasn't in attendance as of yet. I'm Genma Shiranui and I will be the proctor for this final stage. There is a change to the roster as Dozu of the Sound Village dropped out, therefore Sasuke Uchiha will be Gaara of the Desert's new opponent. Now, will everyone but Naruto Uzumaki and Neji Hyuga please move to the competitor's box? The proctor said in a bored but authorized voice. Naruto just stood there with a smirk, while Neji stood there with his usual stick firmly fastened up his ass. The other Chunin hopefuls looked at the two as they walked away unsure of what will happen. In the preliminary round, Naruto showed his unorthodox and unpredictable style of fighting, while Neji showed his love for mind games and precise, yet brutal combat capabilities. What do you think, you lazy ass? Who do you think is gonna pull the win here? Temari asked her opponent. Troublesome woman, it'll come down to who can outthink and maneuver the other. However, if I were a betting man, I'd put my money on your fellow blonde, he's not as stupid as everyone thinks. He once painted the Hokage monument in broad daylight in that very same kill me now orange jumpsuit you see him wearing now, and no one saw him until he started laughing to alert everyone of his handiwork. Even then he outran Chunin, Jonin, and even Anbu for a good 30 minutes before our homeroom teacher found him and dragged him before Lord Third. Shikamaru said, plainly earning a look of shock from the Sant Kunoichi. Really? This should be an interesting match then. She said, leaning against the railing. Back on the field, Neji stood there relaxed, not bothering to get into a battle stance. You should just give up. Fate is determined that I will be the victor of this match. A loser like you shouldn't have made it past the written exam, much less the forest of death. Just like that poor excuse of a clan heiress, once a loser, always a loser. Did you say something? Think I had a piece of earwax blocking my hearing? Naruto said, picking a piece of wax out of his ear and flicking it away impassively before becoming serious. Listen, I don't care if you're a prodigy or a genius or whatever. I'm still going to kick your ass and make good on my blood oath. If you two are done your measuring contest, you may begin. Genma said. Naruto grinned. Prepare yourself, because about to prove that Hinata could and would have won your fight. Before Neji could respond, Naruto dashed forward and slapped him with something on the right of his chest and formed a single handstand, causing his body to go rigid. What is this, Uzumaki? That dumb ass is a paralysis seal. You won't be able to move unless I remove it. Now Mr. Prodigy, what is the point I'm trying to make? Naruto stood there, pulling a kunai, and began twirling it on his finger. What the hell are you talking about? The arrogant Hyuga sneered. Boy, and here I thought you were supposed to be smart, Naruto groaned as he looked around, seeing the shocked looks on the audience's faces, especially the Hyuga clan and everyone that saw that match. Seems everyone else has figured it out, so how does it feel to be the last to figure out the obvious? Just spit it out already. Neji shouted, trying to channel his chakra to destroy the seal. Naruto sighed and pointed at his opponent's forehead. That seal on your forehead, you moron, from what I understand, any main branch member can activate it with a single hand sign and cause you unimaginable pain and possibly kill you by turning your brain into mush. Hinata didn't do that because she respects you too much. She wants your acknowledgement almost as much as she wants mine. And she's too kind-hearted to even think about using it, not to mention she obviously hates its existence. Even when you were about to kill her and had already struck her chest, she refused to activate the seal. Niji looked as if he was about to lose it in a fit of rage if he wasn't restrained by the seal. You're telling that weakling took pity on me? You aren't even listening, are you? Fine, I'll let you go. But before I do, don't think that you're the only one branded with a mark that affects your daily life. Naruto said, flatly slipping into a combat stance that only a few people recognized after releasing the paralysis seal. Niji shot forward trying to hit the blonde but was unable to because of Naruto's dodging, and he wasn't thinking clearly due to being blinded by rage. Naruto sighed and kept dodged every sloppy strike. He figured he only needed to show a little more to get promoted. He already silently created an enforced shadow clone and had it hide behind one of the trees to prepare for the blind onslaught. Niji, I'm only trying to get you to see that fate doesn't dictate everything. Life is what you make of it. Wake up. He said as he punched Niji in the gut after dodging another palm strike. That's it. Niji slipped into a stance the main branch recognized and were surprised that a branch family knew that technique. You're in range of my divination. Naruto groans, Niji became his attack while he did a seal-less substitution with his clone, while Niji unleashed his 8 trigrams. 64 palms. Afterward, the clone dispelled confusing the Hyuga. Where are you, Uzumaki? Geez. If he couldn't even see the substitution, he's too far gone. Sorry Hinata, I did try to make him see reason with words. Time for force and to surprise everyone here with my newly discovered gift. Naruto grinned. Geez, not so loud. I'm pretty sure people in Kiri can hear you. He said stepping out from behind the tree. Time to stop playing nice. I tried reasoning with you. Before turning the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for the shock of a lifetime. Audience stands. What do you have planned, Naruto? You've shown quite a bit already and raised a lot of questions regarding your training this past month, and where have you been? You were supposed to run into Jiraiya but disappeared. I couldn't even see you with my crystal ball. Hiruzen asked himself while looking at the poorly disguised Orochimaru, seeing the same curiosity in his beady eyes. Meanwhile, the hooded woman too was wondering what Naruto was about to show the whole world while thinking. I see you've inherited your mother's mischievousness. Show me what you've learned throughout your life. Stadium Arena. Naruto grinned and flipped through hand signs at a rapid pace. Scorch style. Fireball jutsu. Spewing a giant superheated fireball towards Niji, who was rooted in place with fear, shocking the entire audience when they heard Naruto say scorch style. Never in their wildest dreams did they ever think Naruto would have a Kekkei Genkai, much less one that was supposed to originate in Suna, making those from that nation wonder how the kid got it. Niji however shook himself out of his fear and began spinning in an attempt to protect himself, showing he knew another main branch jutsu. 8 trigrams, rotation. As he created a dome of pure chakra as he spun. However, the fireball was too hot and while he diverted the majority of the attack, he still was screaming in pain at being burned by the heated air around him and the remnants of the jutsu as he lost concentration due to the pain and collapsed. Genma quickly jumped back into the field and checked on the Hyuga and saw he was unable to continue the fight. He called for the medics. Medics. I'm pretty sure he was 3rd-degree burns. Before he remembered his duty as proctor. Winner. Naruto Uzumaki. The medical ninja ran out and checked on the charred Hyuga and verified that he did have 3rd or even 4th-degree burns and carefully but quickly rushed the genin to the hospital's intensive care unit. All the while the crowd, Hokage, and fellow Chunin hopeful were still speechless. Especially a panda bun hairstyle girl. Since when did that knucklehead have kind of power? Heh, he's got some explaining to do, especially for charcoaling my teammate, no matter how much of an asshole he is. Tenten thought to herself after recovering from her shock. Always so unpredictable, she said with a fond smile before clapping her hands, snapping every one of their stupors and join in on the applause for the victor and the amazing fight. Soon enough the noise was deafening. Naruto stood there in awe, surprised people were actually clapping and cheering for him. He looked up at the Hokage box and saw both his grandfather figure and even the Kazekage joining in the applause, but despite all that, Naruto caught the look from Hiruzen that told him they'd be talking later and he expected that when he revealed his Kekkei Genkai and not just from the fire shadow. But his friends and competitors up in the stands and competitors box. However, he felt like one of the spectators was staring at him with a lot more intensity than everyone else and it was creeping him out, but he couldn't figure out who or where they were. Up in the competitors box when Naruto arrived, everyone just looked at him before Shikamaru spoke up. You damn troublesome blonde, since when did you a Kekkei Genkai like that? And why didn't you use it in the Forest of Death? Hey, give me a break. I only discovered I had it this past month along with a few other secrets. Ones I plan on confronting old man Hokage about after the exams are over. Naruto said with a frown on his face. Down on the field, Genma stood there waiting for the crowd to quiet down was getting impatient. Alright everyone, if we all can't quiet down, we'll get to the next round. Now, will Gaara of the Desert and Sasuke Uchiha please make their down here? Gaara disappeared from the competitor's box and reappeared on the arena floor in a swirl of sand, clearly anxious to fight or rather kill someone. However, since Sasuke had yet to show, Genma looked up at the cage box for confirmation. Cage box? Lord Hiruzen, perhaps we can make an exception this once. After all, I haven't seen Kakashi Haddock in the stands either, so it stands to reason that they are together, and with Kakashi's well-known tardiness, it wouldn't surprise anyone if they lost track of time. Besides, most of the people here came to see young Sasuke fight. Surely you don't want to cause a fuss over disqualifying him. Orochimaru said in his Kazekage disguise. I'm sorry Lord Kazekage, but if we make an exception for one, the others will expect the same treatment in return or declare that we are playing favorites, and that is something that stops now. Hiruzen said sternly before giving the signal to Genma to announce the decision, knowing full well his fallen student was next to him. Damn it, the plan is in shambles. That fox brat is stronger than accepted and was able to get that added seal off of him, probably with sensei's help. What do I do now? The snake Sannin thought to himself. Arena floor. Seeing the signal, Genma nodded and announced. By order of the Hokage, Sasuke Uchiha is disqualified for failing to show up on time for his match. As stated before, all shinobi are expected to be punctual, therefore the winner by default is Gaara of the Desert. This earned cries of outrage, disbelief, and cries for an extension. The Senton chewing proctor groaned and looked to the Hokage for assistance. Ladies and gentlemen. As stated for a third time now, all shinobi are expected to be punctual. We also cannot show favoritism to anyone. Therefore, my ruling stands. However, with so many VIPs here to see him fight, should Genin Uchiha arrive before the end of the first round, he will be permitted to fight an exhibition match with no chance of promotion. I will not reward tardiness. Hiruzen said in a clear authoritative tone, showing he would not budge. This seemed to calm the crowd somewhat, but they were still unhappy about it. They did wonder who their golden boy would fight if he showed up on time. Orochimaru would try to make it so that it is against Gaara as originally planned. In the competitor's box, Temari and Kankuro weren't sure what to do but decided to proceed as if it was all according to plan. However, they were distancing themselves from their brother who had returned to the box very angry and looked like he was ready to kill anyone that so much as looked at him wrong. Alright then, the next match is between Shino Aburam and Kankuro from the sand. Genma said only to groan when he heard the Suna Genin forfeit, which earned a glare from Shino and boos from the crowd. Winner by forfeit, Shino Aburam. Would Shikamaru Nara and Temari please come down to field? Shikamaru groaned, he knew if he didn't go down there was a high chance of a riot, and seeing his admittedly attractive opponent already gliding down on her fan and the use of wind chakra. He knew he didn't have a choice, especially since it was about to be made for him. Bet your ass down there Shika. Naruto said pushing him over the railing. As he landed on the ground he muttered troublesome blondes while brushing himself off. The fight itself was long but entertaining, like watching a game of chess, both participants were studying the other, matching each other move for move, and as the day moved on, so did the Nara's shadow abilities, however. By the time Shikamaru was ready to put all his planning into place and use his shirt as a parachute, Temari tore it to shreds and followed up by blowing him into a wall and knocking him out. Winner Temari. Genma said with enthusiasm since he enjoyed watching that match, both Genin had earned promotions for sure with their performances, and judging from the crowd's cheering, they all agreed. It was then that Kakashi and Sasuke appeared in a whirlwind of leaves, Sasuke sporting some new clothes, instead of his high-collared blue shirt and white shorts, it was all black with his left arm wrapped in bandages with a leather band with a clasp. Kakashi Sasuke, nice of you to join us. Genma deadpanned. The copy ninja nervously chuckled before asking. Sasuke's not disqualified, is he? I can see we're quite late, sorry about that. Sasuke scoffed at the thought, but he was curious because judging by the fact that the Sand Kunoichi and the lazy-ass Nara were on the field, albeit with one unconscious, that would mean that the first round of matches were finished, and unless they postponed his match, he was disqualified. And he'd raise hell if he didn't get his chance to get promoted so he could get even strong in order to kill Itachi. Yes, Genin Uchiha is disqualified by Lord Hokage's orders. Genma started before Sasuke looked like he was about to blow a fuse, he continued while looking pointedly at Kakashi. And before you throw a fit you will be allowed to fight your match, however, you have no chance of promotion. All shinobi are expected to be on time for all occasions. So, if you want to cast any blame on anyone, blame your sensei for making you miss your deadline. I demand to speak to that old fool personally. You can't do this to me. He said unconsciously tapping into the power of the curse mark. Hiruzen stood up, using the teleportation jutsu, he appeared on the field glaring at the genin. 1. You dare demand anything of me or anyone else. 2. Let me now remind you, this is a shinobi village and I, as Hokage, am the ruling power in this village, therefore my discussion stands. Now stand down or I will have you detained for insubordination genin. Sasuke growled and went to flip through the hand sign required for his newly acquired jutsu, only for a robbed figure to appear from the stands and knocking him out. Forgive the intrusion Lord Hokage, but I couldn't stand looking or listening to this spoiled brat any longer. She said keeping her face hidden only to have Anbu, Kakashi, and Genma surround her with weapons drawn. You can put those away, I'm not here to attack harm anyone, well other than knocking out your late genin. And who might you be? You're obviously a kunoichi or have had shinobi training to appear like that so quickly. So, if you'd be so kind as to reveal and introduce yourself. The professor said in an authoritative tone that said she didn't, he'd have the shinobi around her to attack. Alright. Don't blame me if those from Suna have a cow. She said throwing aside her cloak revealing a beautiful fair-skinned 30-year-old woman with brown pupil-less brown eyes, green hair with orange bangs that framed her face tied in a bun with a hair need running through it. She wore a sleeveless backless top that highlighted her incredible curves, short tight pants that once again hugged her like a glove, with 2 lapels on the front and back, an obi around her waist, and 2 purple arm warmers that extend up to her shoulders. I don't think I need an introduction, do I? Hiruzen Sarutobi, Kakashi Haddock, Genma Shiranui, but for those in the crowd that don't know me I'm Pakura of the Scorched Style. Pakura said calmly earning gasps from most and outrage from the Sand Shinobi and visitors. I was saved by one of your shinobi on a mission in Kiri where I was betrayed by my country. I'll give you more details away from prying ears alongside Naruto. How do you? Hiruzen started before feathers started flowing throughout the stadium, Suna and Odo shinobi started attacking Konoha, explosions could be heard through the village, and the roar of a huge creature could be heard from outside the gates. I don't think now is the best time for that. Do you Orochimaru? The former Suna kunoichi said slipping into her combat stance. Fukuku and how is that you figured out who I was? Orochimaru said curiously. You mean besides you reeking of death and leaving your bloodlust unchecked? Seriously, do you ever have a bath? She said with a smirk causing the snake Sannin to growl. Kakashi, Genma, Anbu, assist the village. The Hokage said before seeing the Suna genin running off to the forest. Have the competing genin follow those 3 and stop by any means necessary. Bakura, I'd ask for your assistance I don't think I can take my old student alone in my old age. The Konoha shinobi nod and go off to do as told while Pakura just sighed. You're lucky that I need to talk to you later about Naruto because I will tell you I am not happy. Hiruzen sighed, if he was right, then his teammates had a hand in whatever reason she's not happy about and he'd bet his favorite pipe it had to do with his surrogate grandson. He shook his head at that for now and focused on his fallen student. Let's settle this Orochimaru. He said before flipping through biting his thumb and flipping through hand signs before slamming his hand down on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Monkey King Enma. Damn it, he had to summon that old monkey before my guards got here to put up the barrier Orochimaru hissed. And just as Enma was summoned 4 sound shinobi appeared in a square formation and already had flipped through the hand signs required and called out ninja art. 4 violet flame formation and summoned a barrier, boxing in Hiruzen, Pakura, and Enma with Orochimaru. The 4 putting a barrier around each of them to protect themselves ensuring the barrier starts up. It's about time you show up. Orochimaru snarled. Well no matter, it seems I'll need some help. What's he planning? Hiruzen thought ready to ask Enma to transform. Speaking of the Monkey King, Enma finally spoke up. Hiruzen, I see it's finally time to make up for your mistake of letting him go all those years ago and you better finish him this time. Don't you worry King Enma. I'll help make sure that happens. Pakura said respectfully getting a nod from the boss summon. Enough. Forbidden jutsu. Impure resurrection. The snake Sannin said as 3 coffins started rising. Pakura we need to stop them. Hiruzen said throwing shuriken and calling out shadow shuriken jutsu, multiplying them by 3 times stopping the 3rd coffin from rising, not knowing it didn't work due to who it was and therefore the reason for the unsuccessful summoning. Heh, let me show you a proper fireball, not that small, low heat that Naruto did. Scorched style. Fireball jutsu. The dual-haired woman said spewing a fireball, twice the size and heat that Naruto unleashed on Niji, completely incinerating the other 2 coffins, causing Orochimaru to growl and curse. Well done young lady, that seems to put a kink in his plans. Enma said with a smirk seeing Orochimaru fuming over his plan of attack being ruined. Orochimaru had enough and regurgitating his sword, the Kusanagi sword, and ready to fight. You may have stopped the summoning, but I am not done yet. Face it Orochimaru, you were counting whoever you trying to bring back from the dead. Surrender now and I will let your subordinates live. End this invasion now. Hiruzen said seriously with Bakura preparing her mostly deadly jutsu. What's it to be Petameru? Either way, you're going to be little more than a mummy by the time I'm done with you. She said as 3 orange and green fireballs orbiting around her. Sound Ninja 4. We're retreating. You'll pay for this you too. Orochimaru said dodging one of the overpowered fireballs. Enma. Adamantine Nioi. Create a cage around him. Hiruzen shouted. Sarutobi, you idiot. Do you want me to burn? Enma remanded his summoner as Bakura had replaced one of the fireballs. Unfortunately for Orochimaru, the barrier didn't come down fast enough. Scorch style. Super steam kill. Bakura called out throwing all 3 of the fireballs at Orochimaru, and while not directly hitting him, the deadly fireballs grazed and mummified his arms and legs. Damn it, I missed. She cursed. Meanwhile, the snake Sannin screamed in pain as the flame grazed him, falling to the ground, his limbs unable to hold him up anymore. As the barrier fell, the fat one of the 4 shinobi picked up Orochimaru and chased after his 3 teammates. Damn, he got away. Sarutobi, I think it's time for you to retire, and for real this time. Enma said before dispelling causing Hiruzen to sigh tiredly. I'll go help around the village, don't go dying me or Naruto, we much to discuss. Just know the Kushina is probably rolling in her grave in anger at how you've handled things regarding her son. The Scorch user said before running off. Don't I know that better anyone? I have nightmares of her hair flailing around like tails. He said to himself before using the teleportation jutsu to return the Hokage tower to address any Anbu that are looking for orders, only to feel an ominous chakra that he and everyone else that night felt. Naruto. What's going on? Sir. That chakra. Anbu Kadaka Yugao Yazuki appeared in a panic. I know, gather every available jonin now. We're heading to the source. The Hokage commanded. At the same time after the invasion began. Kakashi appeared in the competitor's box to give orders to the genin there, only see 3 enemy jonin turned into mummies and a genin from Guy's team alongside Sakura in the area as well. What happened here? He asked curiously. Those jonin were here to target Naruto as the biggest threat here and Naruto using his Scotch style to do that, it honestly scared me. If it wasn't for him, we'd be dead or worse captured. Sakura shivered thinking about it. And why are you here with Ms. Higurashi? The copy ninja asked calmly, understanding that Sakura was scared. I came down to question Naruto about how and when he obtained his Scorch style when the attack started and those Suna genin ran off with Gaara being reluctant to go wanting to kill everyone here, Tenten said, slightly unnerved at someone's readiness to kill. Alright, well since it was brought up Shino, Shikamaru, Naruto, you 3 are ordered to go after the Suna team and apprehend them. Work together and bring them in for questioning. Sakura, Tenten you 2 are on civilian safety, get them to the shelters and away from the fighting, gather the rest of the genin, and tell them the same if they aren't already doing so. Now go. The silver-haired jonin commanded. The genin nodded and shot off towards their objectives, while Kakashi joined Might Guy attacking the enemy shinobi. Sakura has separated and grabbed Ino, Hinata, Kiba, and the others, while Rock Lee was fast asleep from the Jinjutsu. They decided to leave Lee sleep since he was crippled now and wouldn't be able to help them. On their way out of the village, Naruto shot off another of the jutsu he learned during training in the secret he stumbled across, the Rasengan into enemies as well, firing off other superheated fireballs turning enemies into mummified corpses, slightly scaring Shikamaru and not even bothering Shino. Let's go. Those idiots are taken care of, let's hope we haven't lost track of those sand guys. Naruto said casually, seemingly unbothered by killing 10 enemies. You don't need to worry about that, I placed a female beetle on that puppeteer. We'll be able to find them, Shino said in his usual creepy stalker voice. Still as creepy as ever, man, why did I have put with you guys? This is such a drag, Shikamaru groaned. We round each other out, Naruto's our heavy hitter, you're our tactical advisor, and I'm the tracker, the bug user replied. Let's get going already. I'm pretty sure my Scorch style can deal with Gaara, I'll need you guys to delay his siblings. Naruto said urgently. But that rushed off, Shino defeating Kankuro, but ended up getting poisoned in return, Shikamaru defeating Temari with Asuma's timely assistance, while Naruto started his battle against Gaara. Uzumaki, you shall prove my existence. Gaara said as he started to transform. I see, so you're just like me. Naruto said sadly. However, I won't let you destroy the village. The villagers might treat me like shit, but there are people I care about and I won't let you hurt them. Gaara launches sand shuriken at Naruto, which he dodges and shoves a kunai with a paper bomb up his transformed ass, hurting the Tanuki's host for the first time ever. Blood, it's my blood. Rarg. Gaara screamed, transforming even closer to full takeover. Ouch, bleeding from the ass, but his tail was the only vulnerable spot I noticed. Oh well, better figure a way to beat him fast, Naruto thought, and only thinking of one way, hoping that it didn't kill a fellow Jinchuriki. However, before he could implement his strategy, Gaara succeeded to unleash the one-tailed Tanuki, Shukaku. I will not let you end my existence. Ninja art. Play possum jutsu. Oh yes. I'm free at last. Shukaku screamed in joy, causing Naruto to curse. Fuck. Well, time to cause mass panic for the village, he said, knowing what he was about to do was gonna have every Konoha shinobi on his ass shortly as he slammed his fist down on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Kurama. In a puff of smoke, the very beast that terrorized the Hidden Leaf village appeared with a might roar before seeing why he was summoned and addressed his host who was on his head, while Shukaku was in shock at his oldest sibling appear as a mere summoned creature would. Well, my first time outside for fresh air and I have to fight one of my siblings. Then again, I did say to only summon me in case of emergencies. Very well, I'll lend a paw. Let's get this over with before I get attacked by every shinobi in the area. The nine-tailed fox, Kurama said in a gruff tone. Yeah, I apologize, but as you said this is an emergency and wasn't sure if the other foxes could handle this. The blonde genin apologized. Getting a subtle nod from his partner, Kurama shot forward to grab hold of the weakest of his siblings and headbutt the tanuki into a daze. What are you doing working with these humans that have treated us as weapons and tools of war? Shukaku said after recovering from the headbutt. Unlike you, I haven't forgotten what father asked of us. We're meant to protect the humans, even from within our hosts. Besides, he and his mother have been good to me while I was sealed within them. Kurama reputed before addressing his host. Naruto, get up there and give that brat a good smack and he should wake up and put that giant tanuki back in the seal. Got it? Naruto said, jumping off Kurama and on Shukaku's head and making a sprint towards Gaara's sleeping form was. However, Shukaku was doing his best to stop the boy from getting by using his sand body to immobilize him. Seeing this, Naruto borrowed from his partner's chakra from within the seal to power through and land a solid punch while shouting out. Let me see you grit those teeth. No. I just got here. Damn you fox, I'll remember this. Shukaku said as he crumbled back into the seal. And just as the tanuki vanished and Gaara lay on the ground awake but unable to move, the third Hokage, Kakashi, Pakura and every Jonin and Anbu appeared in the area ready to attack Kurama. Wait. Everything is okay. Naruto said, jumping off his partner's head while the fox groaned and sat down with his front paws up in surrender to show he meant no harm. What's going on, Naruto? Why is the fox out of the seal while you're still alive? Hiruzen said, on edge and still ready to attack. Because during my training this past month, he let me sign the fox summoning contract and said to only summon him in emergencies. So please, everyone stand down. I'll explain why he's a friend and how it wasn't his fault the night I was born. Naruto said, finally getting everyone to calm down and lower their guard before looking to his partner for the okay to go ahead. After getting a shrug, he looked at everyone. First, Kurama was ripped out of my mom, his previous Jinchuriki, by someone wearing a mask cover most of his face, except for his right eye, which contained the Sharingan. For those that don't know, female Jinchuriki take a massive risk having a family because their seals are at their weakest during childbirth. The bastard that attacked that night somehow knew this and acted on it. When he ripped Kurama here from mom, he was already put under a powerful Jinjutsu and summoned into the middle of the village. He didn't regain his senses until he already had his claw through mom and dad while they were trying to seal him into me, Naruto said, trying to fight back to tears, while Kurama looked off to the side feeling guilty for killing his first friend in a long time, who happened to be his current partner's mother. Hiruzen, Pakura and Kakashi looked between the giant fox and the young man in shock, not only at the information that they received, but that Naruto knew who his parents were, and judging from the reactions from the other Jonin and Anbu in the area, they either wondered who the boy's parents were or were in shock that he found out. Naruto, how did you find out this information? Does it have to do with where you've been this past month? Hiruzen said in a sympathetic tone, seeing the boy he saw as his grandson was fighting back tears. Which information do you mean? Naruto started in a deathly calm voice before glaring at Kakashi and his surrogate grandfather. The information of who my parents are. You know, the ones I asked about every month about since I was old enough to talk properly. Or the information about what happened that night. Pakura joined Naruto in glaring at Hiruzen. You mean you didn't tell him who they were? His father, I can understand given his position, what he did in the last war and the massive amounts of enemies he had, but not telling him about Kushina at the very least, what is wrong with you? I bet you didn't even tell him about his burden yourself. Causing the old man to flinch. Not sound rude ma'am, but who are you? The blonde boy asked curiously, taken back by this stranger laying into the Hokage. My name is Pakura. As for the unasked question, I'm laying into this old man because he has a lot to answer for when we're in a more private setting and not having the ears of a potential enemy laying not far from us. She said with a kind smile to her savior's son. Nodding in acceptance, Naruto returned to glaring at Hiruzen and Kakashi, knowing that Kakashi was a part of his father's genin team. The professor just sighed before addressing both of them. Let's go with the information of that night and take the more confidential information of your parents to the privacy of my office. Okay, then I learned it from the big guy behind us. He and mom were friends before she died, even told me that she may have lived if not for his claw through her stomach. Naruto said heatedly, causing the fox to flinch at the reminder before Naruto continued. And yes, that does have to do where I was. Kurama told me where to find their house was and how to get in. That's probably why you couldn't find me after I ditched that pervert Ibisu. My parents' house had a lot of protection to prevent being spied on or unwanted guests from entering. I trained there, finding their wills, jutsu scrolls, notes on Fuinjutsu, and discovered my Kekkei Genkai. The rest of that information will have to wait until I get answers from you and Kakashi, old man. I'll be returning to the seal now since you don't need me anymore, Naruto. If they need to speak with me about anything, get them to bring in one of the Yamanaka clan to enter your mind. Kurama said, disappearing in a plume of smoke. It was then that Temari, Kankuro, Shino, and Shikamaru arrived with the Sand siblings, ran over to Gaara to see if he was alright before surrendering to the Hokage. Hiruzen accepted their surrender, but before dismissing everyone, Gaara gathered enough strength to address a question to the one who beat him. How are you so strong? If we're the same, then why aren't you just like me? He asked in a pained tone. That's easy. I fight for those precious to me. My friends, my unofficial family, the people who were nice to me over the years. To be honest, if I didn't have them, I likely would have ended up like you. And before you say you don't have anyone like that, look to your left and right, your brother and sister love you despite being scared that you'll kill them for whatever reason. Naruto said solemnly. I see. Then will you be my first friend? The insomniac asked, the word friend feeling foreign to him. What are you talking about? We share the same burden, we're more than friends. We're practically brothers as far as I'm concerned. Naruto said with his usual foxy smile. Thank you, Naruto, Uzumaki, Gaara said weakly. Let's get these genin to the hospital. Once they are released, I have a feeling we'll have some unpleasant news to share. Hiruzen said before addressing the rest of Jonin there. Everyone, get back to the village and inform everyone that the fight is over. Jiraiya should have ended most of the major fighting by now. Naruto growls at the mention of Jiraiya, earning a frown from Hiruzen, clearly showing Naruto learned who Jiraiya was supposed to be, while Pakura looked curious what Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, meant to the blonde. Hokage Tower. Hiruzen sat at his desk with Naruto, Pakura, Kakashi, and Jiraiya standing in front of him, with Naruto looking like he was about to kill his student. So, before we begin, can you activate privacy? Seal-san dismissed the Anbu. I'm sure this is very sensitive information. Naruto growled, not taking his eyes off Jiraiya, who was looking at the young man with curiosity, as well as that dual-haired woman, who seemed to stay close to the said young man. Hiruzen nodded and signaled his Anbu to leave and triggered the seals, but not before Naruto's eyes left Jiraiya and threw a kunai through the wall, revealing a dead unmarked Anbu, causing the Hokage to groan. Thank you, Naruto, I'll be handling that matter later. Now then, shall we get to business? Care to tell me why my neglectful son of a bitch godfather is here? I don't feel he deserves to even be near me after all this time. Naruto growled, shocking Pakura. I asked him to be here. You were supposed to meet him during your month of training, but you found your parents' house instead. The professor said with a frown. TCH. Let me guess, Ibisu was supposed to take me to the hot springs to train me on the water walking technique, where I was supposed to spot him peeping on the women bathing and call him out on it and give him some ridiculous nickname like Pervy Sage. The blonde deadpan, earning shocked looks from Kakashi, Hiruzen and Jiraiya. You're pretty sharp, Brad, how did you know? Jiraiya said, still in shock. My father said in his letter he left me within the house. Naive fool failed to realize that I'd be a pariah and not a hero. Kakashi-sensei wouldn't be a proper sensei to his entire team and focus on teamwork until the Chunin exams, and Jiraiya wouldn't be here to raise me, and he made sure whoever my godmother is or was wouldn't know that I survived that night by working with the elders. The blonde spat. TCH, figures. Minato and I never did get along. He didn't like the Kushina stayed behind in Kiri to patch me up enough to get me back to Konoha so Tsunade could fully heal me. Yeah, I got a letter with the Hokage's seal telling me that you three died that night, so I went around the Elemental Nation, training and bettering my skills. It wasn't until I came across that great Naruto bridge in the Land of Waves that I learned you were possibly alive, so I started investigating, and that took me till now to get confirmation when I saw you in the finals. Pakura explained. Jiraiya groans. As much as I want to defend my student, he was the naive type. Especially if he thought the village would see Naruto as a hero and not a demon. Kakashi looked ashamed that he let his sensei down in favor of his promise to Obito, while Naruto looked at Pakura with hope. Yami, and you're my godmother? He asked, barely containing the hope in his voice while Jiraiya rumbled. Oh sure, she gets the hopeful puppy dog look, I get Dizdon. Pakura nodded with a smile before Naruto caught something she said in explanation. Wait, did you say Great Naruto Bridge? they named that bridge after me. Kakashi chuckled. You really shouldn't be surprised, you were the one that gave Inari that life lesson, save him and Tsunami from those thugs, giving them the hope and courage to rally the rest of the town for their stand against Gato's thugs. Not to mention that speech you gave Zabuza after Haku sacrificed himself. Naruto frowned at the mention of Haku, after all, he learned a very valuable lesson from him and knew they'd be the best of friends if he survived that battle. Kakashi noticed this and also felt remorse for that day, after all, it was him that killed Naruto's new friend, even unintentionally, just like Rin. So, Auntie told me her reasoning for not being here for me. What's your reason? Naruto asked Jiraiya pointedly. Hiruzen decided to speak up even though he knew Naruto wanted to hear his student's own words. Naruto, he couldn't be here because he is in charge of our country's spy network. He's needed out in the field more often than not. And when he wasn't needed, he could have made time to come see me on my birthday and other holidays at the very least to let me know that he cared. Naruto growled, his pupils turning to slits while retaining their blue color. I have no excuse for not checking up on you outside of asking Sensei via my messenger toads, other than I was afraid to face you when you look so much like your father. Jiraiya said, ashamed of himself only get punched in the gut by his godson. Unless Minato left something for me with you or the toads, you can get out of my life. I have all the notes I need on that idiot's jutsu and techniques in the house. Go back to peeping on and getting beaten by women in their most intimate moments. The blonde said barely above a whisper, showing he was trying to keep himself from losing his cool outside of the punch he threw. Jiraiya looked devastated but nodded. He did leave something with me and the toads, but he said not give it to you until you old enough so your body can handle more of the fox's power. I assume you mean the key to my seal. The genin asked rhetorically, earning a nod in response. Alright, when it comes the time, then you can approach me to give it to me. Until then, leave me the hell alone. Naruto, aren't you being a little harsh? Can't you give him a chance? Kakashi said, feeling bad for his favorite author. No, I'm not. Rather than facing his fear and face me, he'd rather perv out on women and write that smut you read everywhere we go. And I don't care about this prophecy that my mom warned me about. The genin in the room said sharply, catching Jiraiya off guard and everyone to look at Naruto, as if asking him to explain. Seeing this, he sighed. Mom said that the old pervert here told Minato about some prophecy that Jiraiya would train the child of prophecy and they would either lead this world to salvation or ruin, and mom warned me that he was damn near obsessed with the damn thing. Jiraiya flinched and sighed but didn't say anything because it was true, but he wasn't going to force someone to train with him. Hiruzen sighed knowing that it was true and knew that it was Jiraiya's hope to train Naruto into this child of prophecy. Now old man, I think it's your turn. Why didn't you tell me about my parents when you obviously knew? The younger Scorch-style user asked rather directly. The old man sighed. It's because Minato left me instruction not to tell you about him or Kushina until you became at least Chunin or 16 years old. I didn't get anything saying differently from your mother, so I assumed she wanted the same thing. Thinking back now, she was so proud to be a mother, she'd probably want everyone to know, and to hell with the consequences, and Okami help you if you pissed her off. He shuddered at the thought of a pissed off Kushina, as did the other grown men, while Pakura laughed at it. Yeah, there is a reason your mom was known as the Red Hot Habanero, and it wasn't just her crimson red hair. She had one hell of a temper too. She said while laughing even harder. Naruto laughed with her before getting disheartened. I wish I knew more about her. I'll tell you all about her later. The old Scorch-style user said in a motherly tone. Nodding, Naruto looked back to Hiruzen, who knew he wasn't off the hook just yet. My idiot father I can understand because, as Auntie said, he was a major factor in the last war and made a lot of enemies that would love to get their revenge on him through me. Hell, I'm sure mom had her fair share of enemies as well, but you should have told me about her at the very least, and that the name Uzumaki wasn't just slapped on me, that we were once a powerful clan that took 3 of the 5 great nations to wipe out with only very few survivors left. And on that note, you might want to have a word with the elders and the academy about why my clan wasn't included in the history lessons, considering one of my ancestors was married to Lord First. You're right, I should have, and as you said, your mom had her own fair share of enemies, especially Kumo. They once tried to kidnap her for her Uzumaki genes, as well as her being Kurama, was it? He paused, getting a nod from the young man. Right, being Kurama's host, but I do admit Kumo does treat their Jinchuriki a lot better than this village seems to. As well as both of them seem to be able to work with their tailed beasts completely to where they assume its form and not lose themselves. He's right, Naruto, my sister Matatabi and brother Jaiuki work perfectly with their hosts, even if Matatabi always seems to be in heat. Kurama said from within the seal. They must have some sort of training method we don't know about here. Yeah, I agree, but if Konoha isn't on the best of terms with them, chances aren't great we'll be allowed to learn it, Naruto responded mentally before addressing the Hokage. Alright, I guess I can understand that, but I still expect you to address that lack of my clan's inclusion into the history lessons and tell me why you didn't tell me yourself. I'd like to hear this too. Lord Hokage Kushina saved my life, I'm rather interested to hear this as well. Pakura said, looking like she'd burn the tower down just with her glare. For what seemed like the 100th time today, Hiruzen found himself sighing. There was no way to bring up the Uzumaki being a clan without revealing your mother's identity being revealed. As for the history of your clan, I will look into why it was removed. I'm sure you learned it already from your mother's letter and library. Naruto and Pakura seemed to understand his point but weren't happy about it if the temperature in the room was anything to say about it. Fine, but if something's not done, I might have to start exercising my rights as the Uzumaki heir. He said, making it clear that this wasn't a threat, it was a promise, and the god of shinobi knew the damage Naruto could do with that power. Very well, I'll do what I'm able to. You have my word. Hiruzen said professionally. As for your heritage, should you get promoted, I'll make a public announcement telling the whole village who your parents were and your importance to the village. The blonde nodded, knowing what he was talking about. If he wished, he could have the barrier seals and the swirls removed from Chunin and Jonin vests, as well as the forehead protectors, as the last living Uzumaki in the village. And since his mother was the daughter of the last leader of Uzushi Agakure, he was practically the prince of Uzushio, and with him being the son of the Yellow Flash, he was royalty within the village as well, and all hell was going to be break loose once those idiot villagers learned that. Now then, our turn for some answers. You said you found your parents' house thanks to Kurama and trained there for the entire month. What was your training method and what have you all earned besides paralysis seals and scorch-style version of the fireball jutsu? The third Hokage asked, with the adults in the room wondering the same question. Well, I used a training method that only someone like me can use, maybe even only I can use due to the amount of chakra I have, both as an Uzumaki and Kurama's host. I used shadow clones and their ability to transfer knowledge back to the user. I've only learned the fireball jutsu for scorch style, but I've also learned a fair bit of Fuin jutsu, which seems to come easy to me, like it was my native language or something, the Rasengan, as well how to summon foxes. And as you stated, I've learned the complete history of my clan and started catching on what I missed while in the academy due to the sensei there trying to sabotage me in terms of knowledge. Naruto said, demonstrating the Rasengan, shocking everyone in the room at such an intensive training method before the blonde grinned. In fact, old man, I'm surprised you haven't been using shadow clones to help with the mountain of paperwork you complain about all the time. Now Hiruzen was doing his best impression of a fish while Pakura, Kakashi and Jiraiya were trying and failing to hold in their laughter before the old monkey regained his bearings. Yes, thank you for that piece of advice. I will make sure that you are paid for that information classified as a C-rank mission. You're dismissed. I will call and the rest of the competitors in a few days after the judges and I make our decision. Naruto, I don't have a place to stay. Mind letting me stay with you for a while? Pakura asked, knowing that if he was anything like his mom he'd give her the shirt of his back if she needed. Yeah, of course, but can we go find a friend of mine? She's probably worried sick about me by now. He said, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. Oh? Friend, huh? She said with a cat got the canary smile. Who is the lucky girl? It's not like that. Naruto said with a massive blush. She's just a childhood friend, one of the few that I've had throughout my life. She's the daughter of the best blacksmith in the village and the only place that I can go to for shinobi gear without being charged an arm and a leg. Unfortunately, that doesn't include standard clothing, just mesh armor and whatnot. Oh? You're talking about Tenten Higurashi? That panda hair-styled girl on Guy's team? Kakashi said with a smirk under his mask. She did seem upset when you didn't tell her about your Kekkei Genkai. Even concerned when I gave the order to case the Sand siblings, I could see the fear in her eyes. Yeah, I know, even if she was helping her teammate train, I know she was concerned for me, but also had faith I'd find a way to win against that fate-obsessed asshole. Naruto said with a wistful smile that earned knowing looks from the adults in the room. He's completely head over heels for her and doesn't even realize it was the shared thoughts of all three adults. Are you sure you want me to come with you to meet your girlfriend already? Pakura teased farther. Come on auntie, I told you it's not like that, you know, he groaned, his blush returning in full force, earning a yaha from the older Scorch-style user, along with a giggle hearing Naruto's verbal tick. Alright, get going. Ms. Higurashi won't want to be kept waiting. Hiruzen chuckled, joining in on the teasing. Naruto merely flipped him off, leaving through the door with his godmother following close behind. Jiraiya asked with a frown. I massively screwed up, didn't I, sensei? But you did, and I'm sad to say you're too late to do anything about it. He has Kushina's appointed godmother who can train him in his Kekkei Genkai. How got it is the other question. I'm positive that neither Minato nor Kushina had it, but we know nothing about Minato's parentage. We need to get Tsunade back here to help with the testing. Hiruzen said calmly. Chapter 2. Naruto and Pakura were standing in front of Higurashi Outlet Store, Tenten's home and family shop, with Naruto being slightly nervous about facing his childhood friend, an obvious crush after a month of not being in contact. "Go on Naruto, open the door, and let's go in. It's not like she'll try to kill you." Pakura said, not knowing that Tenten was aspiring to be a weapon mistress, and until the preliminary matches of the Chunin exam, she'd never missed her target with kunai, senden, or shuriken, nor that she was the reason Naruto was able to pull off that kill off the root agent without looking. Bish would. Until recently, she's never missed a target, and that was only because her opponent was a wind user with a battle fan. You saw her in the match against Shikamaru, that Kunoichi from the sand. It was just a bad matchup, I'm sure she'd be promoted to Chunin if it weren't for that match. He said solemnly. I see, so, a girl who owns a weapons shop, surrounded by plenty of sharp things to throw at you, is upset at you. Boy, do you know how to pick them. She said with a chuckle. I told you, it's not like that. Naruto shouted while pouting, not knowing he just alerted Tenten. Naruto, get your ass in here, now. The brunette weapon mistress said sternly. Naruto gulped while Pakura just laughed while thinking to herself. Naruto, this girl already reminds me of your mother. She used that exact same tone with Minato when she was pissed. Entering the shop slowly, a kunai was thrown into the door frame next to Naruto's head, causing his face to pale and his godmother to laugh even harder. Hi Tenten. Sorry I've been out of touch this past month, the blonde said nervously. Tenten just glares at him, tossing another kunai up and down in her hand, making him even more nervous, not saying a word. If I wasn't impressed by her tone before, I gotta say that her glare with the kunai certainly does. Pakura said with a big grin. Not now auntie, the blonde said, scared out of his mind. Not minding her godson, Pakura addresses the angry brunette. Tenten, right. My name is Pakura. It's nice to meet you. And while I'm impressed with your intimidation tactic, I'm going to ask you to put that down. I'd rather not lose my godson after just finding him. Not before he knows not to disappear like that again. I looked for him when I wasn't helping my teammate, even Ichiraku Ramen hadn't heard from him the entire month, which made them especially worried. The brunette said, not taking her eyes off Naruto. He needs to learn not to worry those that care about him and not to keep secrets from his best friend. Hey, it's not I was trying to keep anything from you or Am. I just got busy with training and learning who my parents were. I'll tell you everything, just please put down the kunai. Naruto said as calmly as he could given how scared he was. That is what caused Tenten to lose her glare and put away the kunai. What? You finally found out who they were we right about your father? Let's get somewhere quiet, this is pretty sensitive info. The older woman said seriously. Tenten nodded before shouting. Dad, get out from the forge and cover the front. I need to head upstairs for a bit. You're lucky that I am not busy with a project, a gruff voice came out from the back. Oh, Naruto, good to see you, young man, you sure had my little girl worried about you this past month. I hope you can explain yourself. Yes sir, I was just about to do that, but some of this info is very top secret and we need privacy. Naruto said respectfully. What did I tell you about that sir crap? Kenshin said sternly before breaking into a grin. And if privacy was what you needed you could have asked. Kenshin was a buff middle-aged man with an X on his cheek and graying hair and blue eyes, wearing standard shinobi pants and a blacksmith's apron. He had every intimidating presence, but as long as you treated him and his family fairly, he'd treat you the same in kind. He pretty much lived by the saying do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How, what you mean dad? Tenten said confused. You don't think I run a weapons shop and not have privacy seals for the top secret orders we get in like certain three-pronged kunai? He said, not losing a grin, shocking the kids and a knowing look from Pakura. You old bear, it's been a while. Pakura made herself known. I see, so that's what this is about. Where have you been all these years, you pyro? Kenshin asked with a scowl. Traveling the world after given false information till recently. The dual-haired woman said, simply earning a nod of understanding from the scarred blacksmith. Wait, you know something dad? She said she was Naruto's godmother. The panda-haired girl said in confusion. The old bear sighed. She's right, and before you ask, yes I knew. Let's get those seals up before we say anything more. Getting a nod from everyone as Kenshin activated the seals while Tenten closed and locked the front door, flipping the sign to closed for the time being before Naruto looked pointedly at his best friend's father that practically demanded answers. Alright, now that no one can hear us, where do we start? The old bear asked with his arms crossed. How about the fact that you supposedly knew who my parents were all this time and never once even hinted at it despite knowing how desperately I wanted to know, or that you knew my godmother and probably knew that sorry excuse of a Sanin, Jiraiya, is my godfather? Naruto said in a deathly calm voice. Yeah, I knew who they were. They were our best costumers. Minato would come in for those special kunai of his, and Kushina would come in for sword maintenance, though we were better friends with Kushina than that naive fool. Kenshin said before turning to his daughter. Kushina was a good friend, would come over and help watch over your mom while she was pregnant with you while I ran the shop, even helped out in the front while I worked on orders from time to time. Never understood why she married that fool, even if he saves her from being kidnapped the one time. Beats the hell out me, he was an asshole to anyone that wasn't patriotic to the land of fire or an outsider like me. Kushina took in after I was betrayed by my country, and Minato was none too pleased about that. As I said back in the Hokage's office, Minato refused to acknowledge his wife's claim for me to be your godmother, always thinking of me as a spy or outsider, so he named Tsunade your godmother, even if she probably never got word about her responsibilities. Personally, I think they lived past that night, they'd probably be divorced by now. The only thing that saved their marriage was having you Naruto. Personally, I think that asshole has some secret that related me or at least Suna, because he was especially pissed at me. Bakura said with a shrug, thinking deeply about why Naruto had scorched style, not knowing that Hiruzen and Jiraiya were wondering the same. Wait, mom and dad might not even be together if they lived. Wow. Glad I've pretty much renounced him and have no plans to take up Namika's name, especially after everything I learned recently. Naruto said with a scowl. Alright, your turn, idiot. Where the hell have you been and when you discover your scorched style? Tenten said, poking her finger into his chest, and her glare returned. And how did you find out your parents? To my knowledge, the Hokage forbid those of us that knew them from saying anything until you reacted 16 or Chunin. The blacksmith asked. Naruto shrugged. Well, that answers the question I was gonna ask later. I found my parents' place, that's where I was this past month. The place was stocked with food that was preserved with seals, so I didn't need to worry about leaving the privacy of the house. And oh boy, that house is so well protected, it's no surprise that no one could find me, even when I was training out in the yard. How did you find the house then? You weren't supposed to be able to find it till Hiruzen led you there. Kenshin asked curiously. The young man said nervously. It's alright kid, if you can't trust these three, then there's no one you can trust, besides, you'll have to tell your mate about me eventually, Kurama stated off reassuringly, then went off into teasing about his crush on Tenten. For the love of whatever, Naruto grumbled before sighing before looking at Tenten worriedly. As your dad may already know, and suspect Auntie Bakura does as well, that night 12 years ago the nine-tailed demon fox wasn't killed like we were told in school. My idiot father sealed it into me, his son, in hopes that the village would see me as a hero and be able to control his power. So, we were right. I knew your uncanny resemblance to the fourth Hokage wasn't by chance, never thought your mother was someone famous as well. The Red Death is why I took up weapons. Tenten said, not at all bothered by Naruto having a demon fox in his gut. Naruto was relieved that her opinion of him didn't change, but he hid it well and nodded at her response. That's right, we were. And turns out Kurama, the fox isn't that bad. A little grumpy and rough around the edges, but you would be too if you've been passed down like some family heirloom. First, Lady Mito Uzumaki, wife to Lord first, then my mom, then 12 years ago he was sealed within me. Anyway, getting back on track, being sealed within mom, Kurama knew where the house was and told me where to go. There I found my parents' letters, scrolls on jutsu, the history of the Uzumaki, scrolls on kenjutsu, as well stuff that I missed in the academy due to teachers sabotaging me. I noticed that the hand signs for the fireball jutsu on the scroll were different, but I tried it and get to it within a day with the help of my shadow clones, that when I learned that I was able to use scorched style. But I guess one jutsu doesn't mean I have the Kekkei Genkai. You're right, however, when we get to your home I can see if you really do have the same Kekkei Genkai I do. Keep in mind that if you do have scorched style, you'll need to be careful where and who you use it on. You could have killed and mummified that Hyuga bastard during your match, if not for that defensive jutsu he used. Bakura said, sternly, causing Naruto and Tenten to pale. Okay, no using it in spars or against fellow leaf ninja unless absolutely necessary, but that does explain why those sound ninja shriveled up when I hit them with my fireball during the invasion. Naruto mused, earning a nod of confirmation from his godmother. Well, seems we covered everything. Naruto discovered his new ability while training, got lost in learning his clan's history, catching up on academics, learning new jutsu that he forgot to let UNAM know where he was or what he was doing, not to mention learning who his parents were, and thus probably needed time to himself after that revelation. Kenshin summarized. Not to mention my father was an idealistic asshole that thought that Jiraiya the Toad Sage would be here to raise me, Kakashi Haddock to train me instead of my Uchiha teammate being a part of father's genin team, and the people of the village treat me as a hero rather than a damn demon. Naruto growled, getting nods of agreement from everyone before Tenten slapped him upside the head, earning a pout from the blonde. And why the hell didn't you tell me you were carrying such a heavy burden? Did you really think I'd change my opinion of you just because you have the fox forced into your gut?" she shouted with tears in her eyes. "Tenten, you know how I was treated before we met in the park that day, how you found barely alive on my birthday, after seeing a bunch of villagers leaving, having completed beating me to an inch of my life. I didn't want to risk losing my first real friend, who has become one of my precious people," he said, looking away in shame. Tenten blushed a little before cupping his cheek, forcing him to look at her. "Listen to me, I don't care if you are the jailer of the fox or Kurama himself, I saved you that day because it was the right thing to do, and every day since has been amazing. I look forward to the next time we see each other after each time you go home for the day. I worry when you go outside of the village on a mission, and I can't be there to back you. I hate that you were held back and we couldn't be on the same team." She paused before calming herself. "You're important to me to idiot, so don't be afraid to tell me everything, I'll always support you." The two held each other in a tighter hug as they reminisced about how they met that day on Naruto's birthday. Flashback 6 years ago. It was October 11th and Tenten was out with her father and was out enjoying the festival when they heard a disturbance coming from the playground. "Dad, we should check it out, someone might need help," she said, rushing off without giving Kenshin a chance to respond. When she got to the park, she was pushed aside by a bunch of adults, civilians and shinobi alike, who seemed pleased with themselves, even if they had blood on their clothing, not caring that they pushed her aside. Kenshin showed up growling at the assholes that pushed his little girl down, not noticing where she was looking, nor the horrified look on her face. "Are you alright, my little panda?" he asked. "I'm fine, but someone's very hurt over there," she said, frantically poking to a motionless body of a young boy with blonde hair with kunai, scalpels, senden, and other sharp objects sticking out of him, bleeding out slowly. "We have to help him." Looking up, Kenshin saw the boy and became furious. "Those bastards," he said, walking up and picking up the near lifeless body. "We can't take him to the hospital, they won't do anything unless that old monkey forces them to, even then they will do the bare minimum to keep him alive." It was then an Anbu wearing a raven-like mask with Sharingan eyes blazing. "What happened here? I got word of a disturbance." "TCH. A little late, Anbu. Where the hell were you, by the way? I thought this boy was supposed to have Anbu protection around the clock. Obviously whoever was on duty shares the opinions of this crowd that did this." The blacksmith growled. "I'd like to know that as well, Raven. It was supposed to be you and Dog this evening to keep him safe, so where were you?" came the voice of Hiruzen. "Can we continue this later? This boy needs help or he won't make it." Tenten shouted, tears in her eyes as she looked at that barely alive boy in her father's arms. "Yes, you are correct, let's get him to the The Hokage was about to hospital, but was interrupted. "With all respect, Lord Hokage, all they will do is the bare minimum, and you know it. He's going to need emotional support as well as physical treatment. I'm taking him back to my place where my wife can treat him." Kenshin growled as he started walking with his daughter right by his side. While not liking being interrupted, he knew the old blacksmith was right. "Alright, I will have a word with my Anbu to find out what happened to his protection detail. Come to my office when you are able, I would like to know how you found him and if you saw any of the attackers." The scarred blacksmith just nodded and carefully carried the blonde boy back to his home. Once there, he placed the kid on the table and slowly started taking out the pointy objects while Tenten watched worriedly. "Will he be okay?" Young Tenten asked, clearly concerned before noticed he was healing with a sizzling sound as the weapons were removed. "What on earth? Must be the fox trying to keep him alive," Kenshin thought as he pulled out the last of the weapons that were impaling the boy. "Go get your mother, tell her to bring some towels and fresh water so we can clean him up." "Alright, Dad." Tenten ran off while thinking, how can he heal that quickly? At this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if he was walking around tomorrow. "No need to grab me, I thought some broke into the shop with all that clattering metal." Her mother, Kaoru, came down the stairs before looking at who was on the table. "What happened to Naruto?" she asked frantically. "The idiots in the village happened." Tenten was the one that clued in on the attack just as they were finishing up their attack and leaving the scene. "Raven showed up after the fact and tried to interrogate us, probably to stall us and Naruto bleed out. Even that old monkey trying to question that Anbu, if it weren't for our daughter being concerned for Naruto, it's likely he would have bled out." Kenshin said coldly. "Oh really? I think I'm going to have a word with that old monkey first thing tomorrow," she said with a growl. "You'll get your chance. He wanted us to check in with him as soon as the brat wakes up," the former swordsman said gruffly. "Mom? Dad? How do you know who boy is?" Tenten asked curiously. But before they could answer, they heard a groan from the table. Naruto was starting to stir and was about to get shocked. "Ugh, where am I?" he asked with a raspy voice before looking, seeing it wasn't the traditional white walls he was used to after getting attacked on his birthday. "What the? Oh, you're awake. I was so worried when we found you in the part looking like a porcupine. Are you alright?" Tenten asked as she ran to his side. "Huh?" He asked before he realized that he wasn't alone after the attack, so he got defensive. Who are you? What do you want with me? Didn't you assholes get enough in the park? Ungrateful brat. Kenshin said as he smacked the blonde upside the back of his head. If it wasn't for my little girl, you likely would have bled out before being discovered. Show some gratitude. Dear, don't hit him, it's okay, I think he has the right to be on edge, given what he just went through. Kaoru said softly, trying to calm her husband down so he didn't frighten Kushina's son any more than he always was. Father. Tenten admonished before turning to the kid who seemed to be a year younger than her. I'm Tenten Higurashi. This is my family's shop and home. As my dad so rudely said, we found you after those people attacked you, we brought you here because he said the hospital wouldn't be of much help. Naruto was rubbing the back of his head where he was smacked with a pout. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, thank you for helping me. Normally I wake up in the hospital wrapped head to toe with bandages, even if I heal really quickly for whatever reason. They even keep me there for days even if I'm fine after a night of rest. I had noticed you healed ridiculously fast, but I'm just glad you're awake. You lost a lot of blood though, she said before turning to her mom. Hey, can he stay here tonight? Those people might try to attack him again, besides I wouldn't feel right sending him on his way with how much blood he's lost. Of course dear, I'll run a bath and get the spare room ready. Would you go get him something to eat, he's probably starving. Kaoru said with a warm smile that promised pain to her husband if he objected. Alright mom. The panda-haired girl said with a smile, running off to the kitchen while Naruto lowered his guard before addressing the adults in the room. Why are you helping me? Everyone else goes out of their way to make my life a living hell, he asked solemnly. Because we're not like those morons in the village. Besides, I can't say no to my daughter or wife, especially with how worried my little girl was about you. Just don't go taking advantage of our kindness, alright? Kenshin said with the glare of a protective father and husband, nearly getting a slap from his wife. We're going to see the Hokage once you're feeling better, he wanted to see us when we were able. Now just take it easy until your food and bath are ready. Naruto nodded and groaned as he got off the table and made his way over to a nearby couch to lay down till everything was ready, noticing that both ladies had left to take care of their tasks. I'll keep my guard up even if they seem like good people like the Ichirakus and Gramps. Trusting people usually seems to backfire. Around the corner, Kaoru looked at the injured boy sadly before looking at her husband sternly. You be nice to him. Kushina was good to us and we owe her a lot. It's bad enough we haven't been able to take him in thanks to those old fossils preventing us. And stay here with him and make sure he doesn't leave. I have a feeling he'll take the first chance gets to take off just in case we try drowning him or poisoning his food. Alright. I'll keep an eye on the kid, just hurry with that bath you offered him. Kenshin said, throwing his hands up in defeat. 30 minutes later, Tenten came walking into the living room with a piping hot plate of curry and a glass of milk in case the curry was too spicy. Here we go, I warmed up our supper before we left this evening, I hope that's okay. I don't know how to cook that well yet. Not wanting to be rude even if he was cautious, he nodded in thanks before taking the spoon and took a small portion to check if it was poisoned or not. Once he tasted it, his eyes widened and started gobbling it up with haste. It was the best non-ramen food he's had in ages that wasn't tampered with. Tenten just laughed at his enthusiasm while her father frowned. He saw the hesitation Naruto showed before eating. Damn those fools. What haven't they done to this poor kid? Kenshin thought, clenching his fists. Meanwhile, Naruto finished his meal, he sighed, happy to finally have good food for a change. Tenten looked at him being so happy a bit weirdly. It's like he doesn't get food like this often, I just noticed he's really skinny. It was then that Kaoru called from upstairs. Tenten dear, can you bring Naruto up to the bathroom? The bath is ready. Coming mom. Tenten said before grabbing Naruto's hand without thinking and dragged him behind her while Naruto complained about being dragged. Once upstairs, the black-haired mother smiled. Thank you, dear. She said before turning to Naruto. Get into the bath and we'll lend you some clothes till we can get yours fixed or replaced. Would you like any help with your hair or back? No ma'am. I'll be fine on my own. Thank you for the offer. He said, looking off to the side, clearly not trusting her not to try drowning him, while Kaoru frowned seeing this but nodded before turning to her daughter. Let's go prepare the guest room dear and let him be. I'm sure he'll be ready for a soft bed when he gets out. She said with empathizes on soft bed, catching Naruto's attention, wondering how she knew his bed was practically rock hard, even his pillow might as well be rocks. Tenten just nodded and went with her mom. Will he be okay? I mean, he seems fully healed physically, but I get the feeling something is bothering him. The panda-haired girl asked. He's lived a very harsh life. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to decline the guest room to try to back to his own home, despite the dangers that await him tonight. The older woman said solemnly. But why was he attacked? What else has happened to that boy? He seemed so defensive when he woke up. Tenten asked. He hasn't dropped his guard once since he woke up, even when he devoured that curry. As for why, it's not my place to share it, not to mention if I were to tell you, I'd be killed by the Anbu watching us right now. I'm sure if you two become good enough friends that he'll tell you one day. Her mother said with a sad smile, shocking her daughter that they were being watched. She was already wanting to be this strange boy's friend, if only to ease the pain and loneliness she could see in his eyes. Meanwhile, in the bath, Naruto couldn't figure out why these people were being so nice to him when everyone else except for old man Hokage and the Ichirakus treated him like he was a monster, a plague on this earth to be cleansed, as if his very existence was an insult. They've given him hot food, even if it was their leftovers, a hot bath, something he hasn't had since his asshole landlord didn't bother maintaining the boiler or the rest of the building for that matter, and they were offering him a soft and more than likely very warm bed for the night. They were very friendly with him despite the older man being a bit rude and abrasive, especially the girl that supposedly found him after the annual birthday beatings, which were 10 times worse than the normal beatings. In fact, he was sure if she didn't find him, he would have died tonight. If these people continued to be this nice, he wouldn't mind being friends with the girl that saved him. It was then that the girl he was thinking about called to him from the changing room. "Hey, I'm gonna leave a fresh towel and some of my dad's really old clothes for you to wear to bed. Mom's working on repairing your clothes and should be ready by morning." "Okay, thanks, and before you go," he says, trailing off, sounding vulnerable, something he hated sounding like. "Yeah?" she asked, worried he was going to try something stupid. Thank you for finding me, standing up for me, giving me food for everything." Naruto croaked out, clearly crying in the bath. "You and your family are one of few people that seem to give a damn. So thank you." Tenten didn't know what to say. What she was hearing was a broken boy a year younger than her. She threw caution to the wind and rushed in and gave him a tender hug, and whether or not he registered the hug or not she didn't know, but she did know his crying only increased, but she could tell that his tears of joy. What she didn't notice was her mother looking on with amusement, seeing the beginning of an unbreakable friendship and very possible everlasting love. And from that day on, Tenten and Naruto were practically inseparable, growing closer each day. Even after she graduated and became a genin, they would hang out whenever possible. Flashback end. "Alright you two, break it up. You're 1 inch away from kissing, and I won't have that in front of me, in my shop," Kenshin growled. They broke apart with full body blushes as Kaoru come downstairs, having heard everything. "Oh, let them be, dear, we both know they love each other, even if they won't admit it themselves." "She's right, you know. I look at them, I see Kushina and a better Minato, even though I just met Tenten," Pakura said, joining in on the teasing. Both teenagers just wanted to crawl into a hole and die. They never felt so embarrassed in their short lives, even if what their parents' guardian were saying was true. Both of them loved the other, just didn't know it, even if they acted like an old married couple at times. "Well, my little panda certainly could do a lot worse than him. He's never hurt her and has always been there for her since that day. It helps that he's more like his mother than his damned father," Kenshin thought. She could be pinning for that Hyuga kid on her team with a stick so far up his ass, I'm surprised he can walk properly. As if reading her husband's mind, Kaoru smiled, thinking the same thing. Only what he didn't know is that she and Kushina used to joke around that their kids would be married one day, and judging from what she's seen over the years, looks like they were right. The only thing she had to do was get them to admit that they love each other and let nature take its course. "Well, I think that's enough teasing. We've all had a busy day, and I for one would love to get some rest. I'll be sure Naruto meets you at Ichiraku's for lunch so he can explain everything to Am and Tucci," the older Scorch user said, rolling her shoulders slightly before addressing her godson. "Also, we should be prepared to leave the village on a mission with Jiraiya. If I'm right, Hiruzen will want the best medic out there to run tests on you and me to discover how you got Scorch style." "By that, I assume you mean the Slug Sannin, Tsunade Senju, the last of the old man's only genin team," Naruto said with a knowing look, getting a nod in response. "That would also mean that Gramps is likely going to step down and name her as his successor. He's not getting any younger, and I could see that he's tired and too old to do the job anymore. I'll see you tomorrow, Tenten," he said with his rare honest smile that only a few ever see. Only if anyone looked close enough, you could see a faint blush on his face. "Yeah, you better, you idiot, and don't make me come looking for you or else," she said with a glare that said she was serious but couldn't be taken seriously since she had her own blush creeping up on her cheeks from that smile she loved so much. "You got it," the blonde said before leaving the shop with his godmother, who simply gave a wave to the elder Higurashi. A block away, Pakura had noticed the mixed reactions regarding Naruto. Some were glares of hatred which she glared back, getting them to back off, while some were looking at him with curiosity and pride from his match with the arrogant Hyuga and the strategy involved in doing so. Then there was the few who saw him during the invasion mummify enemy shinobi, earning even more respect from those who were starting to change their mind about him being the nine-tailed fox in human form. What bothered her is that Naruto just seemed to be ignoring them all, the good and the bad, meaning he was overly used to it, and she knew that if Kushina was alive, she would have razed this village to the ground by herself, let alone ask for help. After 30 minutes of walking, they arrived at the edge of the village, right next to the ruins of the Uchiha district, with the Saratobi compound nearby, along with the stadium nearby. Naruto was hiding right under Hiruzen's nose, and his family didn't even notice. The older Scorch style grinned. It's been a while. The last time I was here was before that idiot asked me to check out something that turned out to be a wild goose chase. It just so happened to be a couple of days before your mom went into labor. So I was a good 2 days away when I got a toad messenger telling me about the false news. I'm willing to bet that idiot removed me from the Matrix. I'll fix that. Naruto said as he cut his hand and wiped his hand over seemingly nothing to reveal a large house, one that could be considered a mansion if we're just a bit bigger, with a very large yard. He motioned for her to follow him. Come on, let's get in before anyone tries to follow us in. Nodding, they both stepped through the barrier as it reactivated the seal that camouflages the house to look like an empty lot before anyone noticed. Naruto had his usual foxy grin seeing it happen. I always love seeing that happen, and seems that I don't need to update the Matrix, the only ones that are able to get in here are you and me without invitation. Mom must have noticed Minato removed you before she had me and re-added you without him knowing. After all, he and that perverted Sannin call themselves Seal Masters, but only Uzumaki and truly be considered Seal Masters. What mom knew and could do made both of them look like children. I could tell just her journal how knowledgeable she was in the art. Once I get more training in, I could probably remove that hickey on Sasuke's neck. I don't doubt that. It was Kushina that helped him improve the second Hokage's flying rage and jutsu. But even she was nowhere near Lady Mito in terms of kenjutsu skill, and I know you surpassed both of them in time. Bakura said with a kind smile. Thanks auntie. Let's get inside the house. I could use a shower and something to eat before we get to any training. He said tiredly. Yeah, I bet. You've been through a lot today. That's why we'll start your Scorch-style training tomorrow after your date with Tenten. She said teasingly. I told you whatever even if I did like her that way, I can't risk her being targeted by people that don't like me or people that will be after me once my heritage is made public or any unforeseen threat out there that would use her to get to me. I don't know what I would do if something happened to her because of me. Naruto in a firm but distraught voice, showing that he did love her. You know from what I've seen today, she'd be pissed you don't trust her to defend herself. Hell, people may still use her to get to you, since it doesn't seem to be a secret you two care about each other a lot. Anyone with half a brain seeing the two of interact even once can see that she means to you and you to her. She has her father, who is a retired samurai who has one hell of a reputation. The same goes for her mother. They came here from the land of iron to live their days out in retirement, but they still can defend against any of the shinobi or anyone else for that matter that dares threaten their little girl. So don't think for a second that she's some defenseless, helpless civilian. Besides, what makes you think that she wouldn't feel the same if something happened to you? Watch her, listen to her closely, you'll see that she's just as crazy about you as you are about her. Bakura scolded her godson, feeling insulted for the girl for the lack of faith he seemed to place in her. What makes you think for a second I don't know that? He said with his head down, barely above a whisper, but was heard very clearly. I know exactly what she's capable of. But even someone of her capabilities can be taken down by numbers, or a surprise attack, or both. The same goes for me, or you and the civilians have proven themselves dishonorable enough to do something like that. Hey, she said softly, putting a hand on his shoulder, getting him to look up at her. There will always be a risk when shinobi go into a relationship, even more so for Jinchuriki, but if you truly love this girl, you need to take that risk. Besides, your mother shared a secret with me, the key to taming a tailed beast is to surround yourself with the love of others. But from what I saw, the love of the person that matters to you most is the real key. Don't deny yourself that love and happiness. Naruto just looks at her in awe, tears in his eyes, nodding, understanding what she was saying. I will take your advice and see how things go in the next few days. If it goes as you say, and she does feel the same for me as I do her, I'll ask her to be with me. Attaboy. Now, go wash up, I think it's time if I've lost my touch in the kitchen. Bakura said with a smile. Getting a silent nod in return, he took off to have his shower. Once he was out of earshot and she heard the shower running, she said to herself out loud. Silly boy, I could tell she's just as head over heels for you as you are for her. I wouldn't be surprised if she made the first move sooner than later. For the rest of the evening, Bakura made up a full-course meal that Kushina taught her how to make, and the two spent the night sharing stories, Bakura telling stories of her journeys and what she knew of Kushina, Naruto telling stories of his pranks and the missions he's been on, his other friends, the people that have been good to him over the years. All in all, it was a peaceful night and one that Naruto had been yearning for years, a night where he finally had a family to come home to, some who would be there to welcome him home. What if Naruto destroys everyone in Chunin exams? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys next video.